I'm not sure what I'm going to entail this video, but I'll just roll with whatever I got to say. Will say I am recording this out in nature, but if you do hear traffic, there's a highway not too far from here. But anyway, man, one thing I'll open up with is me personally, I only own like 3 pairs of shoes. I own one pair of steel toe tipped work boots. And I also own 2 pairs of Crocs, and basically that's all that I need, as far as shoes go. You see all these people out here, whether you're talking about guys or girls, especially the girls out here, right? Got typically like what, 35 to 80 shoes in the closet. Even some of these dudes as well, man. There's dudes out here that have damn like collections of shoes. Like I was watching this one dude on YouTube that literally has an entire damn wall where he dedicated a whole section of it to stack his shoes, right? The dude got like 45 pairs of shoes, and half of them the dude just wears like every couple years for a random occasion. You know what I'm saying? But look, Amy over here, all I need is just, 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, and I'm good with just that. I remember this one time I, had to go to a funeral for somebody. And, I had a decent shirt and a decent, pants to wear to the wedding. But I didn't have a decent pair of shoes, right? So I decided, okay, well, I guess what I'll have to do is just throw on, what I got. You know what I'm saying? So, one of the guys there, he was like, oh, nice shirt, nice pants, but, oh, those shoes ain't that good, or he's like, oh, nice shoes, bro. But, implying that it's not really, not really that good. You know what I'm saying? But the truth is, hey, at least I showed up to show my respect. You know what I'm saying? At least. Anyway, back to what I was saying. At least I showed up to show my respect for the guy, who passed, right? Because hell, I didn't have to show up. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to show up, but out of respect, I did. So it shouldn't matter, what type of clothing that I show up in. Like, say for instance, like if you read, I want to say that's James the 2nd chapter. It speaks about, if a man shows up in rich apparel and you treat him above a man that shows up in poor apparel, that God's not with that. And I remember back in the church, like I used to go to a SDA church, which, fun fact, this is the same church that Rock Upon Him actually went to. So I actually, first met him there, ironically enough. But, I remember after the church service, what they would do is they'd have like, a supper or, a lunch for the people that go there, and they would invite the homeless people to come in, to eat for free as well. But what they would do is make all the homeless people sit in the back, and, they can't sit with the church people, right? They can't sit with the people, that look nice, right? All the people that, are looking bad and, are down on life, they all have to sit together in the back, and they have to wait to get their food until all the church people, are done getting their food, so they basically get the leftovers. Which, don't get me wrong, at least on one hand, they're, helping the needy, so that's, of course, a good thing. But it shows you that they're putting them down below the church people, right? Just because they might be homeless, just because their shirt might have 2 holes in it, just because they haven't been able to shower in a week, they're automatically, put below the regular church crowd. You know what I'm saying? And it's it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. That's the way that they do it there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, if you read James the 2nd chapter, it speaks down on that, right? That it's it's against the scriptures to put a man that's poor and has poor clothing, put him underneath the man that has good looking clothing. Read that chapter in your free time. But back to what I'm saying, man. All these people got all these 50 damn shoes in the closet that half of them they don't even wear, like one time a year or whatever. But shit, over here, I'm wearing the same shoes like every other day. Like, let me give you an example. As far as my Crocs go, I've been wearing Crocs for like, I want to say maybe 11 years now. Started wearing Crocs and I was like, say 11, 12 years old, right? Started wearing Crocs since I was like 11 to 12 years old, right? Shit, it might have even been when I was 10. But as far as I know, it was like 11, right? Because I know when I was 12, I still had them shoes. So yeah, I've been wearing Crocs for like 11 years of my life here. And, while they're not the best for your feet, they get the job done and, get done what you need. You know what I'm saying? So you can't complain. And especially, considering the fact that they're like, like $50, right? $50. Matter of fact, when I was in Florida, there was a store, I believe it was a Foot Locker, and they were having a closing sale. So I actually got an amazing deal on Crocs there. They were, as I said, it was a closing sale, right? So I managed to get 2 pairs of Crocs for $40, right? If you buy one, you get one free. So the Crocs are down to $20. So if you buy the one for $20, it wasn't you, let me rephrase myself. It wasn't you buy one, get one free. You buy one and get another one for $20. Because typically the shoes were $50, right? But with this closing sale, you basically get the 2 pairs for $20 each, right? So it wasn't buy one, get one free. It was actually even better in this circumstance because, hell, if it was to buy one, get one free, let's say if you pay $40, $50 for one pair, say $50 for one pair, that's still $50 for one pair, right? Which truly in itself wouldn't be a terrible deal if you buy one for $50 and get the other for free. But hell, I'm not going to complain getting 2 for, $20 each, right? $40 for 2 damn new shoes, right? You can't complain about that. But that was an amazing deal I got on them, right? And, as far as the Crocs go, if you wear them every single day, like how I do, typically you're going to get, say roughly a year and a half to 2 years worth of life for the shoe before the flap on the back either breaks off, or more typically the rubber on the bottom of the shoe will eventually wear away due to constantly walking on, the hot concrete and, the roads. So do keep that in mind, that if you do wear Crocs, which I would recommend picking them up if you don't wear them, but, you're going to have to repair them, or not repair them, replace them, I meant, like every 2 years. So it's probably a better idea to buy a couple of them and then put a pair or 2 in the closet. And then, when you eventually need it, it's right there for you. Like, say, for instance, even to this day, I still keep a emergency pair of shoes in my closet that I haven't touched in like 2 years, right? I bought them like, 2.5 years ago. And, I just always left them up in the closet, right? Just always left them up there and was like, you know what? If my Crocs that I wear every day, if they ever like somehow break automatically, like say the strap in the back falls off, so then I can't wear it anymore, or for whatever reason I can't afford to get a new pair of shoes due to the financial circumstances, I'll always have a emergency pair of shoes to fall back on, if I ever do need it. So that's just a good thing to take into consideration. Especially those of us who have a prepper mindset, right? You always want to have an extra pair of shoes or 2, right? Like, say, for instance, perhaps you might want to get a pair of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like water type shoes. Like, you ever saw those long boots that they might wear to go into the marshes, right? Or like the Everglades, right? You might want to get one of them. Good to have on hand. And it doesn't hurt to have an extra pair of work boots as well. It's just a good thing to take into consideration, at least in my in my mind. Don't forget the socks as well. Which truly, you don't really need that many socks. Everybody out here got, a whole damn drawer of socks, but really all you need is like, what, 5 pairs of socks? And then maybe keep an extra spare pack under the bed in case you, ever lose a pair, right? Or, more typically than not, you'll lose one of the socks and, have to throw the other one out because you don't have the matching pair. But what you could do instead is just buy like all of the same sock, right? Like say all black socks or all red socks or whatever color you like. And then if you do ever lose one of the, the pairs, it don't matter because you already have all of them the same color and size. So you don't have to worry about it then. Another thing I'm going to touch on is about desks. I wouldn't say I have the perfect setup now with the desk I have, but it's certainly much better than what I had before. A few years ago, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago, I used to have a $400 military desk. Right? It was a huge, not only was it worth hundreds of dollars, but it was also worth, what's the word I'm looking for, it was also hundreds of pounds. Right? So first, the person I bought it from, they paid a lot of money for it. So when I bought it from them, paid $100 for it myself, but they bought it for like, $400. But they used it for multiple years because it initially first came from a military base, right? It was literally a big 400-pound desk. It had like 3 different parts to it. It had, a whole giant, it was like an L shaped, right? But both parts of the L could be broken off to carry it easier, which, was a challenge in itself because it was 400 pounds. But nevertheless, it was actually a pretty decent and sturdy desk to have that I had for multiple years. But then I downgraded. I was like, what, while it might be cool and all that, it might just be a smarter idea to downgrade to like, a folding table. Like, if you ever go to Walmart and see them damn folding tables for like, $40-$50. Excuse the background noise. I don't know what the hell is going on over there. Sounds like a bunch of chains or something. But I ended up getting like 2 folding desks, right? One that I picked up was like $40 at Walmart, and it's not bad. I believe it's like 5 foot, so it wasn't bad, right? Pretty damn good. Use that to put the kitchen appliances on, with all that stuff. Or whenever there's an event that you need to have extra space for, you always got that available. But the main desk part that I use now for like my gaming setup, or where I watch YouTube or movies at, I got a $10 table I bought used from a Goodwill, right? It's a nice sturdy heavy ass table. The thing weighs, I want to say, probably about 50 pounds, right? It's like a 50-pound folding table, but it's a metal one, right? It's not a plastic or wooden. It's a pure metal table. So I was like, damn, $10? They only want $10 for it. When I first saw it, I was like, there's no way that the price tag on it's going to be anything less than $20, right? Or $30. I was imagining it'd probably be within that range, right? But it turns out they only wanted $10 for it. It's like, damn, that was a steal right there. So I picked that up at, as soon as I could, because I knew that the moment I walked away to another aisle, I knew that somebody else is going to come grab it because it's such a, good damn deal for what you're getting. So yeah, story with that is it's just better to downgrade from those, heavy ass desks. You don't need them, right? All you need is just a small or a medium sized folding table, maybe 2 of them. And that's all you need. The pros of them, well, there's so many pros. For one, they're very affordable. They're very easy to carry and transport. You can set them up and take them down in less than 5 minutes if you know how to do it. And And yeah, man, it's just a lot of goods to it, right? There's really not a lot of cons, right? Like I think I'd struggle to find one or two cons with the folding tables, right? I mean, I personally can't think of one myself. You can put it down below in the comments if you can think of one, but it's basically all pros, right? It's just all pros, so that's personally what I did, with my table situation, and I'd recommend everybody do the same. Let me see real quick. Another thing I'm going to recommend that I did a couple years ago, back when I was 16 and 17, I saved all of my $5 bills that I got. And you can look this up on YouTube. There's thousands of other people doing the same thing. It's called the $5 challenge, right? And basically the whole thing to it is every time you get a $5 bill, you put it away and you don't spend it. Like, you could get it from a birthday, you get it from your, paycheck, you get it from, maybe winning a lottery card or something. And yeah, every time you get that $5 bill, you put it away into like a box and don't touch it. And then in a year or two, you'll have, hundreds of dollars saved up just by keeping track of keeping your fives. And it does become addicting, once you do it for a couple of months. You always discipline yourself and put that away and, don't touch it. When I did that for 2 years and I had $3,400 in $5 bills just by putting the fives away, not counting 10s or 20s or ones, just by putting away every five that I got, I managed to save up $3,400 for myself. And again, money is hard to come across in my circumstance. I grew up poor, didn't have much, always would have to put my birthday money towards the bills. But I always found a way to manage to do what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, say for instance, one thing that I would do when you go to the store, and pay for your goods, you always give them a bill amount so that they'll always give you, say for instance, if I have to pay them like, let's see, if I have to pay like $4.80, I'll give them like a $10 bill, right? And they'll give me a 5 and 20 cents back. And then I'll take that 5 and put it away. So, I always would try to, get them to give me 5s, or sometimes I'll ask them if they got change, maybe could you exchange this $20 bill for 4 5s? And more often than not, the cashiers are, willing to do that. Because typically a lot of stores are in need of shorter bills, right? All these stores are in need of, like $1 bills or, $5 bills. But, back then, a couple of years back, it wasn't as bad as it is right now. Hell, especially they had like a coin shortage recently, right? So they didn't want you to really, want change back, right? A lot of these stores, because due to the coin shortage. And, I don't know how it's going to be now due to the fact that they're not printing the pennies anymore. So that's a whole situation that we're, yet to see how they're going to work that out. I believe they're going to like round it up to the nearest number, like say round it up to the nearest amount that they can give. Like say if it's a free 32 that they got to give you back, maybe or that you owe them, they'll round it up the extra 2 or 3 cents to 35. Maybe that's what they could do to make the situation easier, because they don't have change, the pennies, but that's yet to see how that's going to go. But anyway, speaking of change, that's something that I should speak on real quick, because not only did I save all my $5 bills for 2 years, I also saved all of my coins for 2 years, right? All of my pennies, dimes, and nickels, and of course quarters. Save all them, because they really do add up quickly. So let me tell you, what I would do is I saved all of the coins, all of the, the coins except for the pennies, you put in one jar, right? So all of the other coinage except for pennies put in a big jar, like a, say, maybe a peanut butter jar or a cheese ball jar or a mason jar or something like that. And then all of the pennies, put them in a separate jar by themselves, because even though they're, they're heavy, take up a lot of space, and that you don't really get much use out of them, right? But they're not worth throwing out, though. They're worth definitely holding on to, especially for those of us who know that the pennies that are pre-1982 are actually copper. So they're definitely worth more than the pennies. So sort them out and, take those ones out of the pennies. But, holding on to all the pennies for 2 years, I managed to save like roughly $50, right? Say like $48, may as well just say $50, right? So that's what I did as far as the pennies go. And as far as all the other coins, I managed to save up like $1,150, right? $1,150 in all the other coins. So if you add up the pennies and the other coins together, that's say roughly $1,200, right? Roughly $1,200 I managed to save up in 2 years just by keeping all of my coins. So if you do the math on, the coins and the $5 bills together, equal up to like $4,600, that I was managed to save up in like, 2 years, just by keeping all the fives and all of my coins. As I said, I went out of the way to get coins and to get my, $5 bills. You got to discipline yourself. Like, say, for instance, sometimes what you could do is, instead of getting a certain drink that you like say if you drink Starbucks or, some energy drinks that are more expensive, what you could do some days is skip getting that and then just put the money that it would have cost into the jar and don't touch it. So act like you did buy it and that you don't have that money available to spend now. And if you do that for multiple times a month, you're going to start adding money up. Or something that I see people talk about on YouTube is they call it pay yourself first, right? When you get your paycheck, before you pay the bills, take a couple extra dollars for yourself and put it somewhere and don't touch it. Like, say, if you low income, you could do $20, could do $50. Some people could do $100 or $200. I've seen people do $500. It just depends upon your, financial levels. That's what it will all depend upon, what you're able to do in your circumstances. But I don't have a whole lot more to say other than that. I just wanted to speak about, the topic real quickly. And yeah, I'll wrap the video up there.